You and I are starting today with a legendary cultivation master named Yaimari Bakudo. He was the absolute strongest on the Luyu continent, a hero who saved everyone from the Age of Darkness by crushing the Demon King's massive army. With the war finally won, he looked back with a smile, thinking everything had turned out just right. But right then, a mysterious girl showed up and announced it was time for their next plan. Out of nowhere, her guards lunged forward and brutally impaled our protagonist with 2 wooden stakes. Yeah, the ultimate price for saving the world was a knife in the back from his own allies. Coughing up blood and shaking in agony, he demanded to know why they had turned on him. But with his final breath, he made them a promise he would drag every last one of them down to hell. Suddenly, the scene shifts. Someone is calling out Yaya's name, desperately telling him to wake up. Opening his eyes, he finds a teacher and some students staring down, asking if he is okay. Yamori is totally lost, wondering how he is alive, who they are, and if this is actually hell. Naturally, a classmate starts mocking him, laughing that he passed out mid-exam, just like you would expect from the weak Amori family heir. Another kid wonders aloud if he was not already expelled. The rest of the class says to just ignore him and focus on the test, whispering about whether the top guy will break another record today. The teacher quickly shouts for order, telling the class to keep going with the physical exam. Now watch this part closely. A flood of foreign memories suddenly hits him, and he realizes he is no longer on the Luyu continent. It turns out he was actually reborn as Yaorei Bakuto. He was born into the prestigious Yaimori clan, but his blocked spiritual veins left his body weak and useless, making his own family hate him. After his parents died, they threw him out a betrayal he can barely believe. But looking through his new memories, he realizes the people here have absolutely no idea how to cultivate. Instead, this world relies on a different kind of power, called Reiki, a basic form of spiritual energy. Locals can't draw it out to use physically, but back on the Luyu continent, they mastered absorbing it directly from the air. The tiny amount Yayamore can feel right now is practically nothing. But of course, he knows the absolute best way to draw it in. Once he finishes absorbing the energy, he notes his awakening is just starting. He has officially unlocked his blocked energy flow. And get this, he even grew taller. He vows that once he claws his way back to cultivation stage level 11, he will return to the Luyui continent and slaughter those traitors. But then, he sighs, realizing he is only at stage 1 and has to build his power back up from absolute 0. For now, he decides to use this physical test to check his new body and gauge his potential. One of the bullies spots him and mockingly asks if he is doing okay now. I know what you're thinking. Can he handle this 100-meter dash? He says yes, making everyone laugh since the next runner is Kabata. There is simply no way our main character is going to outrun a beast like that. Kabata even yells over, asking if he has completely lost his mind, while the girls sneer at him. Yamare just shrugs. He might only be at stage 1, but a cultivator's physical body is light years ahead of any regular human. Both runners step up to the starting line. The starter pistol fires and Kabata shoots forward like a rocket. Yamari? He just stands there with a smirk on his face. The crowd goes wild with insults, shouting that he is too frozen in fear to even move. But he is actually just giving the guy a massive head start. He slowly counts to 3, flares his cultivation, and stuns the entire crowd. You see, back when cultivators first walked the Luyu continent, their godlike abilities shocked the world, breaking every known human limit in speed, strength, and raw perception. Comparing him to a regular human is like comparing modern technology to a caveman. Yamri effortlessly blitzes past Kabata, crossing the finish line in a flash. The massive gap between them is like heaven and earth. The instructor is left speechless, staring at a brand new, broken school record. Kabata collapses to the track in pure disbelief, unable to process what just happened. Yamori notes that while this body is still weak compared to his peak, its raw potential is actually much higher. He vows to reclaim his spot at the absolute peak. It turns out, he originally surpassed every master with only 50 years of training. By age 65, he reached cultivation stage 11, cementing himself as the most powerful entity alive. He even drove back the demon army invading Lu'ua, but the tragic betrayal that followed ruined it all. Those so-called friends turned on him. Now, you and I are back in the school bathroom, watching him stare into the mirror. He realizes that to reach stage 11 once again, he is going to need some highly specialized elixirs. Alright, stick with me, our main character is totally broke, but if he can craft and sell some high-value talismans, he might just make a fortune. He only has 1,000 yen left, which is not even enough to buy cheap crafting materials. If he wants his revenge, he needs cold, hard cash. Right then, a bully named Kabata corners him, claiming that our hero caused too much trouble today and demanding this month's protection money in advance. Yamore immediately gets the picture. The previous owner of this body was constantly blackmailed by these thugs. They shook him down for protection cash just last week. Fed up, Kabata orders one of his goons to teach Yamore a painful lesson. The goon completely underestimates him, thinking this will be easy. He lunges forward with a heavy punch, expecting an easy win. Yamori realizes the old owner would have taken this beating, but he absolutely will not. He is not that weak kid anymore. He smoothly ducks the punch and counters with a brutal hook right to the guy's jaw. To an elite cultivator, even a heavy-hitting boxing captain is nothing but a normal, fragile human. The punk goes flying. Instantly, Yamori charges the next guy, launching a brutal kick to his face that slams him straight into the wall. Shaking in fear, Kabata wonders if this is even the same kid. Standing tall, our hero asks if they are suddenly terrified. Desperate, Kabata screams at the remaining thugs to attack all at once. Two of them charge, but Yamori effortlessly catches both of their fists and squeezes with insane, crushing force, sending them screaming in pure agony. Watch closely here, our hero just smiles and asks if they are still having fun, ready to enjoy every single second of this absolute payback. The thugs beg for mercy, but Yamare tosses them aside. Suddenly, one of them sneaks up from behind, lunging wildly and screaming that he won't let him escape. Yamori is way faster, landing a punch that sends the guy crashing hard through a bathroom stall door. With a completely wrecked face, the goon passes out cold. Yamore coldly warns them that next time, it will be far worse. Trembling on the floor with broken hands, Kabata calls our hero a literal monster. Yamore steps closer and demands they return everything they stole. Confused, the cowards stammer, forcing Yamore to remind them that they have cash belonging to him. Realizing his life is on the line, the bully frantically hands over every single dollar he has. Leaving the bathroom, our hero reflects that he might have gone a little overboard this time, but knows those cowards won't dare breathe a word to anyone. Still, he feels the school is way too crowded, and he needs to make his exit soon, but at least he scored enough cash to buy supplies for some basic talismans. Let's pause here because we need to understand how talismans work. They are crucial tools for low-tier cultivators. By channeling raw spiritual energy into specific materials and drawing runes, they trigger incredible magical effects. Even for Yamore, who is currently stuck at stage 1 of cultivation, crafting these is absolute child's play. Summoning them forward, 4 glowing sheets of paper materialize on the ground. Picking them up, he knows he can fetch a very high price for these in the right market. All he needs to do now is find a quiet place to train and purchase some rare medicinal herbs. Fast forward 3 weeks later, and Yamore is struggling. He has traveled everywhere, but still hasn't found a single buyer. Normal people just stare at his magical creations with deep suspicion. But as he walks, he spots an injured dog crying out in pain. It whimpers, gasping for breath, before completely collapsing on the pavement from exhaustion. Inspecting the poor creature, Yamore notices the deep gashes and figures it was probably struck by a speeding car. Deciding to help, he pulls out a freshly made talisman to test its raw power on the pup. It is a healing spell. The spell's magic rapidly repairs damaged organs and completely mends physical wounds. Within seconds, the dog leaps up perfectly healthy. Suddenly, a furious voice calls out to the pet as a wealthy man and woman approach. The arrogant guy sneers, demanding to know why anyone cares if a stupid stray dies anyway. The woman snaps at him to shut up, pointing out that he was the reckless driver who hit it, before yelling that she needs to rush the pet to a clinic. But then, they both freeze, realizing the dog is completely fine and leaving them absolutely baffled. She rushes over to Yamore, asking what exactly he did to cure her pet. Annoyed, the boyfriend demands to know where this kid came from. The girl insists that the dog was bleeding out and shouldn't even be alive right now. Sensing his chance, Yamore realizes this is the perfect sales pitch. He pulls a charm from his pocket, explaining that its magic saved the dog. She stares at the blue protective paper, but her rude boyfriend cuts in, calling him a complete fraud. Trust me, you're going to love what comes next. Come along with me, as this guy gets accused of being a scammer who staged the whole accident. She completely ignores him, asking if this talisman can wake someone from a vegetative state. Yayamori is caught off guard by the term, but realizes his spiritual energy can definitely make it happen. Known as the Pure Mind Talisman, it channels pure spiritual energy to trigger rapid cellular repair and regeneration. He hands her the amulet and confidently explains that it will easily solve her mother's condition. Still doubtful, the cousin sneers, asking if this trash can actually cure his aunt, warning Shizuru to stay away from this fraud. Yaemori completely tunes him out, explaining that the activation is simple, just hold the charm right over the sick person. The large one costs 400,000 yen. The smaller one is 200,000. She instantly buys every single talisman he has, shocking her cousin. When he tries to threaten Yaimori, the cultivator instantly grabs his wrist with bone-crushing force. He warns the loudmouth to back off and stop interfering with a closed business deal. Telling the troublemaker to get lost, Yaimori tosses him aside effortlessly before turning back to finalize the transaction with the young lady. Handing over the rest, he explains the yellow charms offer protection, while the red ones summon explosive fireballs. Though he hopes she never has to. Beaming with joy, she thanks him and asks for his name before he departs with his dog. Meanwhile, her obnoxious cousin keeps grumbling that the guy was obviously a con artist. Now watch closely, she knows it sounds completely insane, but if there is even a tiny sliver of hope to wake her mother, she will gladly risk everything. With cash finally in hand, Yaimori can secure a place to live and buy rare herbs for his cultivation training. Just then, his dog stops dead in its tracks. Before them sits a house radiating a vibrant blue spiritual aura, where Yaimori spots a legendary silver heart grass plant growing right in the garden. Back at the local clinic, we find Shizuru's angry cousin getting patched up by a nurse. Fuming with rage, he calls Yaimori a dead man walking, swearing to tear him apart the next time they cross paths. Nearby, a stern older man commends the cousin for watching over Shizuru, but mutters that her reckless behavior has humiliated their entire family. He demands to know how she could trust a cheap trickster, asking if she wants to turn them into a local laughingstock. Behind their backs, the nurses whisper and gossip, laughing at the rich girl for wasting a massive fortune on useless paper charms, calling her an absolute fool. Let that sink in. She just wanted to try. It was her absolute last hope, and she had to exhaust every single option left to her. Her father roars in anger, demanding to know if she has completely lost her mind by believing in suspicious fairy tales, asking if she will start praying to pagan gods next. Tears stream down her face as she asks him what he would do in her shoes. She bitterly points out how rarely he ever visited her comatose mother, sobbing that if he had hospitalized her sooner, none of this would have happened. She demands answers once more, boldly stating that if she simply accepted her mother's fate like he did, he would probably just move on and find another woman without shedding a single tear. Blinded by fury, the old man raises his hand to strike her, yelling that she knows absolutely nothing. But he freezes, halting his palm inches from her face, pulling back and muttering about how rebellious she has become. He coldly threatens to call the nurses and pull the plug on her life support, making Shizuru desperately beg him to stop. Rushing to the bedside, she tightly grasps her mother's hand, promising never to let go, when suddenly, a brilliant blue light erupts. Miraculously, her mother opens her eyes, gently calling out Shizuru's name and placing a hand on her head, leaving her father completely speechless. Waking up from her long coma, she softly asks if her sweet daughter has lost weight. Overjoyed, the father rushes out to summon the medical team, shouting that his wife is awake, leaving the stunned doctors scrambling to run emergency tests. Unbelievable. Following a thorough checkup, the doctor reveals that while full recovery will take time, she should completely heal within a year and a half. Shizuru instantly realizes this miracle is all thanks to the paper amulet. There was absolutely no doubt that it saved her. The entire room is left completely flabbergasted, staring at a literal medical miracle that should have been scientifically impossible. Her cousin turns pale as a ghost, wondering if that boy is actually a legendary immortal cultivator. Shizuru tearfully embraces her mother, crying with joy. Believing a true god has blessed her, she vows to find that mysterious young man again and repay him by any means necessary. We cut back to a new apartment, where Yaimori finally relaxes, completely done with moving in. This marks his very first step to reclaiming his power and returning to the Luyu continent, swearing brutal vengeance against the traitors who murdered him. And that's where we leave it, as he hunts for rare materials to reach cultivation stage 11. Stick with me, he is warning those greedy traitors that their time is almost up. Lying down, Yaimori realized the world's spiritual energy was rapidly fading away. If this terrible trend continued, his path of cultivation would be completely cut off. To solve this massive problem, he had to track down a rare location or artifact packed with dense spiritual power. He figured only high-grade spiritual materials or energy sources would fit the bill. Yet, he could barely believe that rare silver heartgrass was flourishing right inside his own backyard garden. This legendary herb is a true spiritual material. Unlike common plants, these are crucial for refining breakthrough elixirs to boost a cultivator's overall power tier. If he uses the silver heart grass fruit to refine chi-gathering pills, he can easily reach level 2. But one single careless mistake could trigger massive problems and seriously stall his cultivation progress. Since disaster could strike at any moment, he needed to begin his intense training immediately. A bit later, Yamori was busy selling his hand-drawn talismans right in the middle of the bustling city. He lamented that the essential ingredients for making chi-gathering pills were still way out of his price range. Even clearing out his entire talisman stock wouldn't cover the cost. Still, he tried selling them as quietly as possible. But watch closely, trouble has already tracked him down again. They were trying to maintain their distance, but he knew they were secretly tailing him. They had been stalking him since his very third day running this stall. This felt like a structured criminal organization, and their numbers were growing rapidly. It looked like they were finally ready to strike. Either way, Yamori was determined to unmask the punks stalking him. Suddenly, a familiar girl approached him, asking if he was truly Yamori. Noticing his long absence from school, she mockingly questioned his cheap street setup. She claimed to feel sorry for him, bringing up his frail body, his recent expulsion, and his penniless state. Still, she never expected him to sink so low just to make a living. Yamori instantly recognized her. She was one of the arrogant classmates who used to laugh at his face. Rummaging through her purse, she offered to throw a little cash his way if he needed help, but he completely ignored her petty charity, coldly stating that he had far more important things to attend to. Frustrated, she watched him walk away, sensing something off. Meanwhile, Yamori headed directly into a dark, secluded alley where his stalkers were lying in wait. Now, you and I both know what is next. 10 enemies? Just a quick warm-up for him. He picked up his pace, prompting the hidden thugs to jump out and give chase. He intentionally cornered himself in a dead end, where one thug scoffed that escape was now totally impossible. Smiling calmly, Yamori said they had finally stopped hiding. Confronted by armed punks holding bats and sharp knives, their bald leader grinned, mockingly praising Yamori's foolish courage. Yamori coolly demanded to know why they were tracking him and who was pulling the strings. The bald leader laughed, pointing out that Yamori had offended the area's most powerful noble family. Selling goods in public meant he must have an absolute death wish. He openly wondered what the Amatani heirs ever saw in a trash bag like him, wishing him better luck in his next reincarnation. Hearing that name, Yamori wondered if his ex-fiancée, Amatani Setsu, was behind this. Accessing his host's old memories, he confirmed he was indeed once engaged to her, but his fragile health and school expulsion led the proud family to cancel that engagement immediately. Was the powerful Amatani clan really dispatching hitmen over a simple, broken, arranged marriage? It felt weird, but either way, he would force these punks to squeal. Meanwhile, the arrogant girl saw the gang surrounding Yamori and panicked, thinking the local syndicate was about to murder him. She was terrified, wondering how he got mixed up with dangerous criminals. She knew his fragile body stood zero chance against an entire squad of armed thugs. Reaching for her phone to call the police, she froze as a massive thug sneered right behind her, asking if she was looking for a lost pet. The muscular gangster demanded to know who she was dialing, instantly pinning her to the ground. The gang was surprised by their boss's sudden arrival. Yamori instantly recognized the annoying schoolgirl, wondering why she had foolishly followed his path into this dangerous alleyway. The scarred gang leader smiled, calling this highly lucky. Mocking Yamori's charms despite his broken engagement with Setsu, the boss grabbed her hair. Terrified, she screamed at Yamori, begging him to flee immediately. She desperately warned them that hurting her would trigger the wrath of her powerful Kyojoyama family. While his men panicked over her identity, the boss just smirked. He reasoned that, once she was buried here, nobody would ever find out the truth. And that is where we leave it, trust me. You are going to want to see what happens next. Alright. You and I are about to watch Yamori flash step in and disarm this thug in an instant. Charging forward, he realized drawing this much attention was bad news, but honestly, there was just no other choice. Holding back just is not his style. He slams the guy's face right into the wall, completely shattering it. The girl is completely stunned, wondering if this monster is actually him. The other thugs freeze in pure shock as Yamori demands to know who sent them. Meanwhile, over in the city center, the police radios are absolutely blowing up. Word is, the notorious Scar Gang is finally making a move. When an officer asks for their location, the dispatcher reports that over 30 thugs are swarming an East City alleyway. It looks like they are clashing with a single boy who is protecting a hostage. Instantly, the officer whips his car around and calls for backup, specifically warning headquarters not to tell the chief. He warns his team to stay back, knowing these traffickers will execute anyone who gets in their way. He yells to confirm they copy, but the voice on the radio says backup might not even be needed. Now pay attention to this part. That kid literally wiped out the entire group in the blink of an eye. Dozens of thugs are left groaning on the pavement, while Yaimori casually holds their bald leader by his skull like a bowling ball. The terrified boss stammers, asking if he is really the useless trash of the Yamor family everyone gossips about. He cannot believe his entire Scar gang was just wiped out so easily by a single high school kid. Our hero coldly asks where they got their intel, giving him exactly 3 seconds to talk. The bald guy begs for mercy, but the police suddenly roll up, screaming at him to freeze. The cop starts lecturing him, warning that taking a life makes him no better than the criminals. Yaimori is just annoyed that the authorities decided to show up out of nowhere. Sure, he could beat the answers out of them, but he has already proved his point, so he carelessly drops the leader. The bald guy gasps, knowing he just escaped death, while Yaimori realizes he cannot openly fight the government with his current level. The officer sighs in relief, thinking they made it just in time, still stunned by the sheer carnage. He introduces himself as Officer Ko Haruki from the local Nemi City Police Department. The girl hides behind our main character as Haruki reassures them, while his partner introduces himself as Rohara Fumiya. Yaimori realizes they saw the whole fight, proving the government's eyes are always watching closely. You and I both know how rare good cops are, and Haruki promises they will only ask about the fight. But suddenly, a corrupt-looking official arrives, complaining that the rookies almost let a criminal walk. He announces that he is taking Yaimori down to the precinct immediately under the suspicion of severe assault. This smug guy is Naga Reo, the arrogant vice chief of police. He grins, flashing a fake arrest warrant. The girl protests, screaming that they were the victims here, but the chief claims he only saw Yaimori viciously beating up those, quote, innocent citizens. The bald gang leader just smirks behind him. Haruki calls him out, demanding to know why he is lying, when they all know these men are traffickers. The chief scoffs, asking since when a low-level rookie talks back to his boss like that, even threatening to get him fired on the spot. Haruki tries to argue, but the older cop with glasses quickly pulls him back. He tells him to chill out. Surprisingly, Yaimori just shrugs and tells them to lock him up. Yaimori knows this corrupt cop is pulling out all the stops to frame him, while the chief mocks him for being such a cooperative criminal. Our hero figures these ambushes will keep happening, so he might as well use this chance to dig up some intel. If he does not clear his name now, he can't train in peace and will only fall behind. So Yaimori drops a trap, asking how the chief knew he was a student when he never mentioned it. The chief freezes, realizing he totally slipped up. Smiling, Yaimori calls him a brainless lackey and asks why he doesn't just try to kill him right now. The chief nervously looks away, claiming he has no clue what he means, and orders his men to move. While being led away, Yaimori casually glances at a button in his hand and whispers that it is a pity. The shocked cop gasps, wondering when he snatched it, as Yaimori smugly warns him that next time, he will take his head. Furious, Naga swears he'll remember this insult. Meanwhile, deep inside a dark prison cell, a shadow lurks. The guard barks at the inmate, telling him the target is coming, and orders him to completely eliminate the kid. On the way, Yaimori wonders if he is actually going to real jail, right until the guards throw open the doors with evil smirks. Walking in, he wonders if they'll jump him together, and honestly, you and I both know he's going to enjoy this. You and I are about to find out if this mysterious guy by the window is the mastermind behind everything. Clutching a cross and a holy book, the man claims he always followed a code and never harmed innocent people. But to a professional killer like him, weaklings like Yaimori simply don't deserve to live. With a smug smile, he snaps his fingers and introduces himself as Faki Zeni, a mercenary hired to end our hero's life right here. He tells Yaimori to surrender and die, but our hero asks if he is just another lackey. Yaimori can feel a sharp, needle-like sensation piercing his skin in this room. He might be physically weak now, but he can clearly sense the massive spiritual energy radiating from this guy. This opponent is definitely a cultivator. Faki declares that the time has come and that he... Now, watch closely as he lunges with a deadly strike, but ends up hitting absolutely nothing but empty air. Yaimori completely vanishes, reappearing right in front of him to grab his face. He whispers that Faki got it all wrong, the weak one here is him. He slams the killer's face straight into the hard floor, but Faki manages to react instantly. He grabs Yaimori by the leg and hurls him across the room. Easily regaining his balance, our hero stands tall as Faki admits he underestimated him. And now, Faki promises to make Yaimori deeply regret his arrogance. But Yaimori basically teleports right in front of his face, unleashing a devastating punch that blasts him backward, completely shattering the solid concrete wall behind him. Faki spits blood, absolutely shocked by that raw power. But our hero is not stopping. He leaps forward and delivers a brutal kick that sends him flying again. Covered in blood and absolutely furious, Faki charges straight ahead, screaming at him to stop being arrogant. But Yamori effortlessly dodges the attack and exploits the massive opening, burying a punch deep into Faki's stomach that makes him cough up more blood and fly backward. Faki desperately wonders what kind of monster he is facing as Yamori's terrifying aura completely paralyzes him. Yamori closes the distance again, smashing a fist into his face and demanding to know who hired him. The once smug killer is now toothless, bleeding, and literally crying. While Yamori demands a straight answer, the scene suddenly shifts over to the corrupt police chief, who nervously asks if our hero is a monster. The guy on the other line dismisses him as a total failure. The chief wonders if that is true, but notes that as long as they play their cards right, everything should be fine. The voice tells him to chill out because he sent a capable assassin, promising to step in personally with Ima if things go south. He boasts that he is the only one worthy of being the third-class police chief of Bawan district, while the chief warns him to keep his word. Back in the cell, Yamori pulls up a chair and coldly asks the battered killer if he's ready to talk yet. You and I can see our main character is totally confused when the guy says he's beyond ordinary human limits. Our hero wonders if other cultivators exist in this modern world. The man explains that years ago, he met an old monk in Ryuja. That monk split a massive tree clean in half with a single bare-handed energy strike and gifted him a bottle of divine water. Following instructions, he drank the diluted water over several years, slowly transforming his physical body into something far beyond a normal human. Yamori instantly realizes this liquid is actually spiritual essence, meaning if a spiritual source exists in Ryuja, he absolutely needs to find it. He notes that spiritual sources only form in places with incredibly dense concentrations of spiritual energy. Over decades, that dense energy condenses into pure essence, which eventually hardens into a source. This liquid is unbelievably potent and absolutely priceless for anyone trying to level up their cultivation. Yamori asks why someone with superhuman strength would obey a weak old politician. The man explains his son was dying and treatments were expensive. Even the legendary divine water couldn't cure him, only buying the poor kid a little more time. That was why he desperately needed the cash. Yamori is shocked to hear this, calmly telling the man that he actually has the power to fully cure his dying son. He explains that using pure divine water on a normal human is incredibly dangerous, though diluted energy is harmless. But once it gets highly concentrated, things change. Luckily, Yamori knows a secret technique to safely suppress and refine the energy. Pulling out a healing paper talisman, the skeptic assassin scoffs that it is completely useless. But Yamori quickly injects a tiny spark of his power, instantly curing the man's broken face. He then offers him one final choice: reveal the name of the true mastermind, and his son will live a healthy life. Smiling, the man admits he knew Yamori was a god among men, revealing the client's name as Akimasa Hashimoto. The perspective shifts to a smug blonde man laughing at the police chief, calling him a spineless coward, before hanging up to start his real work. He mockingly asks the person bound in front of him if she wants a drink. It is a badly beaten, barely clothed woman weeping in terror. And as he rips the tape off her mouth, "Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next." Alright, you and I are diving straight into pure madness, with this psychopath laughing about pulling out more of her teeth. He brutally grabs some pliers and yanks her tooth straight out. A butler quickly arrives with a message from Ima about Yaim, but the arrogant blonde guy shrugs, saying his Ruja lackeys are already handling it. Meanwhile, back at the station, the man thanks Yamori for the talisman, offering his own cross in return. Yayamori instantly realizes it is concentrated spiritual essence, perfect for cultivating the rare silver heart grass. Once it blooms, he can use the seeds to brew chi-gathering pills and finally break through to cultivation stage 2. The thug warns him that Hashimoto is coming, and trust me, anyone that monster targets ends up in a shallow grave. Yamare calmly responds that, as long as they stick to the deal, they will be fine. Now, over at the university, the woman with the dog is stunned to learn that this talisman boy is the rejected heir of the Yayamori family. Talk about an absolute coincidence. She immediately plans to ask the president which class he is registered in. Now, pay attention to this girl trying to defend Yamori as she speaks about the Yakuza. But her uncle shuts her down. If the Yakuza are involved, he refuses to get dragged into this mess with them. She protests, feeling responsible for the whole situation, while the secretary tries to quiet her down and tells her to leave. Suddenly, the door swings open. Someone standing outside overhears them and asks if they were talking about Yamri. Back at the police station, an honest cop asks if they are really letting the Scar gang slide after all these years. He calls it a blatant abuse of power, but the chief demands proof, warning him about the consequences of insulting superiors. The officer snaps that he knows exactly what corrupt game is being played, but the chief just laughs it off. Just then, the door bursts open as the girls from earlier point directly at the culprit. They call out the crooked chief who locked up Yamri. He mocks them, claiming the kid is a complete nobody anyway. The chief insists that Yamri is a prime suspect in a massive theft case and cannot be released. The officer questions when those fake charges even happened, but the chief snaps at him to shut up and follow orders. The girl calls him out, asking why only Yaimure was locked up while the Yakuza went free. The furious chief tells her to get out right now or face arrest for obstruction. Instead, the other woman calmly sits down and dares him to try. Smiling, the chief immediately orders his men to lock them up. The smiling chief labels everyone an accomplice. You and I both know this guy's greed has no limits. She asks if Chief OG would actually allow him to fabricate charges like this. He just laughs, claiming that insulting an official makes things worse. But she notes that he's been taking major bribes under the table. The chief visibly panics, and she asks if Yamure's freedom can simply be bought with cash. He sneers that the rich do get special treatment, but Yamure's fate is already sealed. He spins a wild story, claiming she attacked first, and Ko was just defending himself. He asks how she likes that little fairy tale. That is when she holds up her phone, asking Chief OG if he heard everything. The big boss confirms he did. The shocked chief is suspended on the spot, and the boss says he is heading over right now. The chief is horrified to learn she is actually the daughter of a city councilor. She introduces herself as Suga Shizuru, from the prestigious Suga family. Meanwhile, locked in his cell, Yamori realizes his remaining aura can only be used one last time. He senses a presence approaching. It is Shizuru, smiling and saying it has been a long time. Back at the villain's base, the blonde man is absolutely furious. He screams that his men are useless, knowing that if this mission fails, his own boss will execute him. A guard nervously asks for their next move. He orders them to deploy their absolute best assassin, determined to show the Ima family what they are truly capable of. He decides to handle it personally. Meanwhile, back home, Yamri is completely broke after spending all his cash on ingredients. He performs a cultivation ritual, condensing his spiritual essence into a pill. Gulping it down, he breaks through to cultivation stage 2. Testing his power, he teleports instantly, noting it has been ages since he used the Cloud Shadow step. Now, not even bullets can touch him. But to level up further, he needs rare items packed with pure aura. He targets the Ryuja region, but it is heavily guarded, so he asks Faki to hook him up with a power player in Kyuchi. Then he spots a TV ad for a hot health product. Trust me, things are about to get wild. Alright, you and I are about to watch Yamure turn a bunch of rich, youth-obsessed women into his ultimate goldmine. Rewind 5 hours earlier, and Yamure could not believe she was actually the daughter of Counselor Suga. She called him to ask a favor, mentioning the famous Suga building. Naturally, he knows the place. It is the absolute heart of Nemi City's massive cosmetics industry. She explains that she is hosting a celebration tomorrow for her mother's full recovery, and she wants him there. Fast forward to the party, and Yamori arrives. He admits he cannot brew high-tier spiritual elixirs yet, but basic stuff like beauty-preserving pills? Totally doable. Selling just 3 or 4 of these to wealthy ladies would easily rake in over 2 million yen in profit. Suddenly, he spots a rich elderly woman in a wheelchair and realizes this is his perfect golden opportunity. Some snobby guests start pestering Shizuru, telling her she is hitting her 30s and needs to get married immediately. They warn her she will end up like Masami, a hopeless spinster. Shizuru tries to defend herself but fails, until her mother steps in. Shizuru explains that after grandmother passed, her mother raised them, but this rude relative snorts that now that she is awake, watch this, he actually says, an older woman is defective and needs a forced marriage. He claims the wealthy Onaga family is her absolute best match. The older woman defends her, saying Shizuru has her own opinions, but he calls her selfish and mocks the idea of cosmetics actually rejuvenating anyone. Right on cue, Yamure steps in, asking if a family head should call someone so important defective. The angry relative demands to know who this nobody is and calls security, but Shizuru quickly intervenes, explaining he is the savior who cured her mother. Shizuru's mother warmly thanks him for selling her the life-saving talisman. The man scoffingly laughs, claiming she was scammed and that modern hospital medicine did all the actual work. Yamore introduces himself as a researcher of time and value, and a partner of President Suga. The crowd scoffs, wondering what this liar is even doing here. He calmly promises to show them proof. He grabs the older woman's hand and presents a mysterious box, telling her to consume it. Inside is his special beauty-preserving pill. The arrogant man barks at him to stop playing stupid games. He claims it is probably poison. The woman asks if it is safe, but Shizuru and her mother immediately speak up, saying they trust Yamore completely. Yamore steps closer, asking if she wants to regain her youthful beauty and silence everyone who called her a wrinkled, old 30-year-old witch. Now, you and I watch as she gulps it down, shocking everyone. At first, absolutely nothing happens. She still looks exactly the same, and the man sneers, bragging that he knew it was a scam. But then, right before their eyes, her skin and hair begin to transform. She becomes visibly slimmer as a mirror is brought forward, revealing that her entire appearance has completely transformed. Another rich lady rushes up, begging to buy one. Yamore says the price is 400,000 yen, but he only has 10 left. Just like that, a massive bidding war explodes in the room. The greedy relative realizes these rich ladies are fools for fighting over single pills. If he can steal Yamore's refining technique, he could completely dominate the beauty market. But his partner panics and disagrees, warning that pushing this deal might actually bankrupt their entire family. He tells her to shut up. He still plans to force Shizuru to marry into the Onaga family to recover all their massive financial losses. Once they secure that powerful alliance, getting their hands on the pills will be incredibly easy. Dozens of wealthy guests swarm Yamore for distribution rights. One offers 4 million yen, while another bids 20 million. Suddenly, the bespectacled uncle cuts in, saying Yamore is an honored guest and everyone needs to back off. He is preparing to make his own play. He pulls Yamore aside, offering 30 million yen and proposing a deal where Yamore gets 70% of the total profits. Yamore asks if he gets 70 and the uncle gets 30, but the greedy man laughs and says it is the other way around. He boasts that the Hoshiawa family owns the biggest cosmetics network around. Shizuru suddenly interrupts, demanding to know why he is talking garbage. She asks if he cared about the family when he lost 160 million yen by mortgaging their grandmother's company. She threatens to read the bank's final collection notices and the warning letters from the furious Onaga family out loud. Panicking, he stammers, asking how she knows. She retorts that he only showed up to drain her mother's money using the exact same tricks he used on grandmother. He is not getting a single yen from them, and he does not even have 30 million to his name. He frantically denies everything, calling it a complete lie, and begging his sister to speak up for him. But she is deeply disappointed, having trusted him with their mother's company. He keeps begging, whining that he is the only heir left. The transformed beauty steps forward. Trust me, she is not done. Let's dive into this crazy story, where a sister completely disowns her brother over an inheritance, leaving him with absolutely nothing, while the entire crowd mocks his misery. Shizuru reaches out to Yaya, mentioning the party is packed with industry experts who can easily jumpstart his business if he wants. She estimates 40 million yen is a fair deal for initial sales. With Yaya keeping 80% of the profits, she warns him that this room is full of hungry sharks, so he must choose wisely. Yaya replies that when it comes to business, Shizuru is the only one he trusts. Cut to shortly after, at Yaya's house. She remarks on how nice his place is. Yayamore thanks her for the ride, but she playfully tells him to drop the formal talk since they are friends. Walking toward his front door, he looks up at the quiet moon and realizes a peaceful life like this actually feels pretty good. But the moment he opens the door, horror strikes. A pool of blood coats the floor, and his rescued dog lies there stabbed. Yayamore is absolutely furious, tracking the culprit. Nearby, a hidden thug whispers into his phone that the target has finally returned. He reports that a woman who looks like the guy's girlfriend was with him, and gets the order to snatch her up too. Making Yayamore taste true despair will make Emma very happy. He leaves his sick gift, while Yayamore desperately rushes to check on his dog. His pet is barely breathing, so Yayamore prepares a healing charm, but keep your eyes on the roof, because an assassin is plunging down with a blade. Before the killer can even land his strike, Yayamore swiftly dodges, and delivers a devastating kick directly to his face. The rest of the gang quickly moves in. Yayamore softly commands his wounded dog to go and hide. Pure rage consumes him as he decides whether to slaughter them one by one. Shouting threats, the entire mob charges forward to crush him. A thug lunges with a knife, but Yayamore easily sidesteps the blade and slams his face into the pavement that is one down. Another heavy charges in with a metal baton, screaming insults. Yayamori effortlessly evades, snaps the man's arm, and lifts him by the throat with a single hand that makes two, only a few left. Terrified, they yell to change plans and shoot his limbs, but Yayamori blitzes them so fast their leader immediately starts singing like a bird. We cut to a sleazy blonde guy spinning a kitchen knife, claiming she is just some worthless girl anyway. But since she is a Suga family member, Shizuru is bound tightly to a wooden table with heavy iron chains. Suddenly, his phone rings. He picks up, asking if the hit is done and if Yayamori is dead yet. Yayamori answers instead, coldly stating that his hitman will never wake up again. The blonde villain scoffs, praising his guts before asking him to guess what is in his hands. Shizuru. Hearing this, Yayamori loses his mind, roaring at the punk to release her immediately, because she has nothing to do with this. But the psycho laughs it off, warning Yayamori that he is wasting precious time. He gives him exactly 40 minutes, or he will tear her body apart and display it to the entire city. The psycho dares him to come find them. Now, you and I both know what happens when you push a monster too far. He crushes his phone and swears bloody revenge. Back at the hideout, the blonde creep decides to record a teaser video first. But before he can even lay a finger on her, a sudden knock sounds at the door, making him yell at his guards. They panic, explaining the warehouse sprinklers suddenly went off. Furious, he reminds them he ordered the system disabled and demands to know what they will do if the police arrive. Determined to check it himself, he takes a step right before a guard is launched backward, smashing the door wide open. Fading fast, Shizuru realizes it is Yayamori coming to save her. We rewind to 1 hour earlier, where the guy from the detention center only wanted to drop off an introduction letter to Ryuja, but nobody was picking up his calls. He mutters to himself, wondering if he even has the correct address as he watches. Yayamori's dark house, suddenly overhearing a thug confirm that the target has finally returned. The contract killer reassures Hashimoto that Yayamori will arrive completely battered and half-dead anyway. Our observer pieced together that Hashimoto actually sent a pack of ruthless assassins directly to the house. He quickly decides to tail them and ping the live location directly to Yayamori. Arriving at the scene, he calls Yayamori to report that Hashimoto's goons kidnapped his girl and dragged her to a massive mansion. But Yayamori bluntly replies that he already knows. We see he already tortured a confession out of one of the thugs, but he still asks this ally for help rescuing the girl while he takes care of the rest. We'll drag them straight to hell. Inside, the blonde leader keeps whining about the active alarm as he stomps down the hall, completely unaware that an ally is waiting in ambush. Two guards grumble about how difficult it is to make an honest living nowadays, when a sudden rustle nearby catches their attention. Spotting the intruder, they demand to know what he is doing, but he politely asks them to go to sleep. As the guard gets tossed aside, he cuts the captive girl free, leaving us with one final thought: Yayamori definitely owes this guy a massive favor. Even so, he scoops her up and starts running, whispering that they have to escape before anyone notices his break-in. Right as he reaches the door, "Trust me, you'll hate this," a bullet pierces his leg, sending the girl crashing down with him. Meanwhile, Hashimoto is busy bragging about his marksmanship while his guards suck up to him. Hashimoto scoffs at the man's sheer audacity for showing his face here. Then, wearing a maniacal grin, he declares it's a beautiful day. He wonders if they all came seeking his punishment, laughing that he can barely contain his excitement. But our guy struggles back to his feet, telling Hashimoto to save the trash talk for after he gets beaten. Meanwhile, outside the gates, Yamori is standing there, absolutely livid. A single guard tries to block him, but Yamori easily decks him with a brutal punch, sending him flying. Suddenly, everyone rushes to attack, but with a few swift strikes, Yamori wipes the floor with them. Inside, our injured fighter has cleared his opponents too, but he is barely standing. The fighter regrets ever agreeing to help, feeling deeply ashamed that he failed to protect the young girl. Hashimoto sneers that once the man dies, he'll rip his family apart piece by piece. Now brace yourself, because a massive explosion suddenly blasts through the room. It is Yamori, declaring he is the one sending Hashimoto to hell. The moment he spots his ally, he tosses him a healing talisman. Hashimoto aims his weapon and orders his men to kill them. Bullets fly, but Yamori charges straight ahead, dodging every single shot, knowing guns are useless against his legendary speed, especially since he has completely mastered the Cloud Shadow Step. Hashimoto watches in pure horror as Yamori easily decimates every single guard. Fearing he is next, Hashimoto scrambles to find a safe hiding spot, panicking that this was never part of the original deal. Yamori is not even human with speed like that. Hashimoto screams to open the escape door, desperately punching in the code, but his panic blocks his memory. Suddenly, one of his own guards comes crashing right into him. Shaking, Hashimoto tells him to back off, claiming Yamori cannot defeat the powerful figure backing him. He reveals that Lord Ama, his powerful backer, is the one who actually ordered this hit. Yamori has no idea who this nobody is, but he is going to make Hashimoto suffer regardless. Hashimoto babbles that he is the heir to the Ima family, set to marry into the prestigious Amatani clan very soon. But rumors about Yamori ruined his reputation, claiming that the martial artist had touched his bride-to-be. Now, you and I both know his past self never met these guys, meaning this whole thing was a setup to ruin him. Hashimoto desperately begs for his life, promising that he can still be of great use. He mentions that his family head is an incredibly powerful martial artist, which actually catches Yamori by surprise. Hashimoto keeps begging, offering his loyalty, but Yamori completely ignores the pathetic plea and punches him right across the room. Looking around, Yamori spots the captive girls in the room, making him even more furious about this entire operation. He decides he won't be the one to judge Hashimoto, leaving his fate to the girls instead. He slices their chains free and tosses them a blade. Yamori tells the girls they can do whatever they want with him. Hashimoto frantically offers money and high society connections, but the girls coldly reject him, saying sending his soul to hell is more than enough. We then cut back to Shizuru and Yamori. Yamori applies a healing talisman to the wounded man, instructing him to escape and contact the authorities immediately so they can secure the girl. Once that is done, he plans to leave. When asked about his next move, Yamori promises to dismantle the entire Ima clan. A few days later, Yamori is back to training. He knows Hashimoto is done, but Ama is still at large. He must track down his location and crush him before he strikes again. Suddenly, his dog barks at a knock on the door, leaving Yamori wondering who could be visiting him now. Shizuru's guard is standing outside with a delivery, explaining it is a special gift from the president before quickly taking his leave. Unboxing the packages, Yamori calls Shizuru to ask about the formal suit and the party invitation he just received. He asks what is going on, and she tells him to read the card, explaining it is for an elite gala hosted by the Hoshiawa family. When he asks if he really needs to go, she insists, saying that launching his new pill requires making connections with this powerful group, because they own the biggest pharmaceutical company in the entire city. To make things even crazier, his ex-fiancée, Yuki Amatani, will also be attending the event. Arriving at the venue, the sheer scale of the luxury gala is obvious. There is Agent Pierce of the Ace Group and Taro Akai of the Kaka Group. Trust me, you and I need to watch this party closely. Alright, you and I are diving into a world where these giants run Nemi City. Yamori wonders if they want Hosokawa ties too. She doubts he was really born noble, explaining that even a tiny, distant connection to the prestigious Amatani family makes people desperate to get close. And get this, his ex-fiancée is showing up later tonight. Right on cue, two powerful women walk in: the Hosokawa family head and Amatani Yuki. Yamori immediately wonders if his ex actually has spiritual power. He is shocked to find out she is a cultivator. She is not even hiding it. Talk about pure confidence. Shizuru steps in to break the ice, complimenting how amazing they look. The matriarch asks about Shizuru's mother finally waking up, and Shizuru reveals she brought a special gift, a rare beauty-preserving pill. It is a brand new formula, and she hopes the elder enjoys it. Whispers erupt. It is the exact same legendary pill whose price went completely through the roof after that day. The elderly woman is amazed, calling it the peak of elixirs. She knows whoever made this must be an absolute master. She demands to know the creator, and Shizuru proudly introduces her partner, Yamori. Yamori introduces himself, leaving both women completely stunned. The old matriarch remembers holding him as a baby, marveling at how much he has grown. Pay attention here, because the Yamori family clearly had no idea what they threw away. Yuki scoffs, claiming crafting skills mean zero to nobles. True nobility values raw cultivation power, not just a talent for making pills. If basic crafting was enough, he would already be a senior master. Yamori realizes these big families do have cultivation methods, but they are incredibly crude compared to the Lu continent. Yuki claims that is why his skill is worthless, but the matriarch is intrigued, asking who his incredible master is. Yamori thinks of his real master, but casually lies, saying it is just a hobby and he is self-taught. In fact, he has a burning question to ask. Before he can speak, a white-haired man interrupts, congratulating the elder. Instantly, the entire room starts whispering about him. It is Ima Joe, heir to the Ima family. Hearing his name, Yamori freezes. This is the man who wanted him dead. Joe claims he could not miss this party, then eyes Yamori, asking who he is. The elderly matriarch introduces Shizuru first, noting she is from the Suga family. Joe acts polite, but as he introduces himself, Yamori senses a dark, malicious aura rolling off him. Now, I know what you're thinking. Joe is totally playing dumb here, and Yamori wonders how long he can keep it up. To test him, Yamori flares his aura and introduces himself as Yamori Bakudo. He knows cultivators always hide their true strength, unless they are backed into a corner. Spiritual waves do not just leak out. But if he quietly channels a tiny spark of energy straight into Joe's meridians, it might show something. But the moment he does, Yamori gets nothing. Joe has zero spiritual energy, he is ordinary. Joe is clearly in pain but fakes a smile, politely asking Yuki how she has been doing lately. Yamori finds it incredibly weird. There is absolutely zero spiritual movement from this guy. Is Joe really just a normal human? Hearing Yamori's name did not trigger a single drop of killer intent. Later, during dinner, a man in glasses announces that the grand ball is about to start. He invites the guests to make their way over to the grand dance hall. During the dance, Yamori wonders if he was wrong about Joe. Maybe he really is just a normal guy. But why? Shizuru watches him from afar. A man asks her to dance, but she brutally shuts him down. Whispers spread that the Suga family heiress is picky. She even rejected the Katagiri family heir. Then, she does the unthinkable. Shizuru walks right up and invites Yamori to dance. He freezes, totally caught off guard. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, armed guards wait inside a dark limousine. Joe gets inside and strictly orders everyone to stay back. Inside, someone asks why he brought his creepy bodyguard, but Joe snaps and tells him to shut up. He explains that these chosen guards eventually lose their minds, even forgetting their own families and where they came from. They vanish completely. But trust me, you and I didn't expect this bodyguard to slap Joe's face. All right, you and I are starting with a brutal confrontation. A guard demanding how Joe dares hold another woman's hand in front of Yuki. His face twists, reminding Joe that his life was only spared to be useful. But if he cannot handle even this, he will not die peacefully. Then, the shock reveal this guard is actually Ima Joe in disguise. Moments later, the real Ima Joe steps out of the car, commanding two of his guards to follow him straight into the grand hall. One guard realizes the rumors were true. Since only one person left the vehicle, he wonders what truly happened inside. We see the disguised guard tied up, weeping, and boiling with absolute rage. Meanwhile, back at the party, the real Joe finally shows up, claiming he was handling an urgent matter, before noticing a scene that has captured everyone's attention. It's Yamori, dancing effortlessly with Shizuru. She looks genuinely happy, even a bit shy, while he guides her smoothly with his eyes closed. Who could have predicted this? She compliments him, saying he dances beautifully. Leaning closer, she reminds him that they cannot miss this chance to introduce the cultivation pills tonight. Yamori realizes the body's previous owner must have taken formal dance lessons in the past. He silently thanks him. Plus, being at cultivation stage 2 definitely gives him a massive physical edge. The old woman asks if Yuki knew he was this talented. Yuki coldly replies that it changes absolutely nothing about him. The old woman notices Yuki's secret interest. Now, watch closely as Ima Joe approaches, praising Yamori's surprising talent on the dance floor. The old woman asks if he already knew him. Joe replies that he indeed does, though today is actually the very first time they are meeting. The old woman mocks him, noting his family's massive influence still couldn't uncover a simple abandoned child's past. Joe smiles, saying he cannot cause trouble in Hoshiawa territory. She replies that the methods do not matter to her at all. Yamori has incredible potential, and she cannot leave someone like him completely unchecked. Ima Joe wonders what she is plotting, thinking that if it weren't for Yuki, he would have erased both this old woman and Yamori. Guests whisper about Yamori, calling him Yuki's ex-fiancé, and questioning why he dared to show up knowing Joe was here with her. They gossiped that he was so close to winning her over before losing everything. If they were in his shoes, they would never let it go. Others suggest his only remaining option is to desperately cling to the Amatani family. Claiming he has zero chance of redemption, they assume he is using Yuki to crawl back into high society. Otherwise, he has no reason to be here. I know what you're thinking, but Yuki isn't having it. She decides to leave early, calling Yamori over, claiming she knows his plans. She warns him to give up on these utterly useless and futile ambitions. Using her to restore his family's lost status is foolish, leaving Yamori completely clueless as to what she means. She adds that refining pills might let him live comfortably, but won't make him truly powerful. Yamori simply sips his wine, completely unbothered. He smiles and asks who she thinks she is, adding that her overflowing spiritual energy is not even intentional. Yuki is stunned and demands to know how he discovered that. He explains that forcing the energy flow might speed up absorption, but it will utterly destroy the body. Her body is already at its absolute limit. Shocked, Yuki demands how an ordinary guy like him could possibly know such secrets. Yamori casually offers to fix it for her. He He notes that she might find something so absurd hard to believe. But whether she believes him or not, it is her life on the line, and she is rapidly running out of time. He proposes a fair exchange, stating there is a specific favor he needs her to complete. Specifically, she needs to deliver a message to Ima Jo. Seeing them together had made him furious. Meanwhile, guests were leaving the mansion. As Yamori and Shizuru headed out, a voice suddenly called out to them. It was that same old woman again, wanting to ask him a few questions about his miraculous pills. Soon, the three are walking together through the quiet garden. Yamori politely says it is an honor to speak with her, though he suspects her true interest lies beyond just the pills. She kindly asks him to drop the formalities, but he refuses, stating he no longer belongs to an influential family. Smiling, the old woman notes that he strongly reminds her of Yuki. She explains that after her parents passed away, the Amatani family kept her under constant surveillance. Her uncle became the current head, dictating every aspect of her life, including marriage. Fortunately, because an ancient family backed the Amatani clan, they granted her the rare right to train and become a legendary cultivator. Yet even with that power, she's still trapped. So we leave her here, forever bound by her noble heritage. Stick with me, because unless she breaks past human limits, she can never escape the Amatani family. Yamori knows that breaking through from stage 2 to stage 3 is way harder than the previous level. She clearly took a dangerous shortcut to gain power fast, literally trading her life for strength. He wonders why she is sharing this with him. She tried absolutely everything, but there was no cure. Just like Shizuru's mother's coma, no treatment worked. Even so, she desperately wanted to save her, but creating those beauty pills was impossible to do alone. Fortunately, Yamori's skills easily outclass every alchemist she has ever known, giving her a tiny sliver of hope. Shizuru finds this completely natural after all. The guy can refine legendary pills and craft high-tier talismans. Now pay attention here, because compared to the Lua continent, the cultivation methods in this world are incredibly primitive. Despite that, the old woman wants to partner up, showing massive interest in his highly lucrative pill business. Shizuru promises that, with their backing, profits could shoot up tenfold. But she begs him to someday use his miraculous abilities to save Yuki, calling her a fragile, gentle girl, which honestly felt like a total lie considering what she did just minutes ago. The old woman explains that she was utterly devastated when the engagement was called off. But before she can finish, Ima-jo suddenly appears, saying he finally tracked her down. He thanks everyone for today, explaining he just wanted to say goodbye before heading out. He reaches out to shake Yamori's hand, hoping they will cross paths again. Yamori smiles, but let's pause right here because the instant their hands touch, he feels something bizarre, knowing with absolute certainty that spiritual energy is radiating from his body. Meanwhile, back in the limousine, the loyal bodyguard hands him one of the gifts Yuki prepared. Unwrapping it, he finds a delicate origami butterfly and wonders what it represents. Not that it matters, he immediately orders his other clone to keep it safe and locked away. He fumes that because Hashimoto failed so miserably, he has to personally deal with that absolute trash Yamori. Sure, Yamori might have grown up a tiny bit, but to him, he is still the same pathetic loser. He orders his men to closely watch Shizuru, Nana, and Yamori, plotting to have Yuki eliminate them both. Suddenly, he shapeshifts directly into Yamori's exact likeness, terrifying the guard next to him as that origami butterfly starts to glow. Meanwhile, high up in a massive skyscraper, Yamori watches silently from afar. And trust me, you and I are going to see these two clash again very, very soon. And there is the exact same butterfly in Yamori's hands.